Hey, welcome to my channel, Keen Reads. My name is Jared. Today I will be talking about unhauling some books. So as you know, am moving across town, so I'm in the current process of packing up all my books. I'm going to transport them myself because I'm transporting them in cargo bags, kind of like reusable grocery store bags rather than boxes. So I don't want to have the movers have to worry about those. So I'm just going to transport them myself. So it'll take a couple trips, but again, I'm only moving like 15 minutes away, so it'll be fine. But as I'm going through this, my wife has been very big on cutting down on things that we have. And while I do love all of my books, there are a couple books that I was trying to think about getting rid of. So some things that were going through my head as I was thinking about what books do I not need in my library anymore and might be better served in other people's libraries. So the first thing is I want my library to be curated, meaning when I originally started this library 10 plus years ago, I really was just kind of looking at any book to get. I just wanted books. It didn't really matter what they were about or whether they were ones that I thought I would reread. If there was a book that I read, I just wanted to keep it in my library. I haven't really gotten rid of a lot of books throughout the years, other than books that are duplicates. That's really the only books that I've gotten rid of over the years. But as I'm kind of now have accumulated a lot of books, I realized that I want my library to be more curated and specifically books that either are special to me, books that I plan to reread, books that I highlighted some text in that I can keep going back to, which actually is a couple of these. But as I was rereading them, the passages just didn't really do anything for me anymore. And ultimately, my goal is to kind of have my own Western canon in my library. So going from Epic of Gilgamesh to now, present times, what I think are important books to me and to the Western culture. I've been giving more and more thought to expanding that to Eastern culture as I've been watching a lot of more booktubers that are kind of expanding my thought process. And I've joined a Discord with some booktubers, and they talk about a lot of a lot of Eastern books, Arabic, Sanskrit, Chinese, Japanese books as well that I've never been aware of. So I'm kind of thinking about incorporating a little bit more of that into my reading life. But for now, my reading list consists of my books that I want to read of the Western literature. So these are books that really don't fall into that category. All of them I've read before, and I don't really plan on reading them again. Doesn't mean they're bad books. I enjoyed reading most of them. There's one here that I really did not like. And there actually is one that I haven't read, but I just know that I won't read it because I'm no longer interested in that author. So enough rambling, let's go ahead and get into it. First book is Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. I remember reading this and thinking that it was okay. There are a couple things that I tagged here, but as I was reading them, I wasn't super impressed with the prose style. And I felt like I never got pulled into the plot like I should have been. I feel like it was written as a very heartfelt, kind of sobering plot. I believe it had to do with, it's been years since I've read this, and I didn't do a lot of prep for this video. But I believe it had to do with a man who goes back to Eastern Europe to a concentration camp to kind of retrace the steps of his grandfather or one of his ancestors who was a part of the Holocaust. And just reading it seems like a very sobering book. Something that makes you think, but I really didn't get that from it. I remember thinking the plot was kind of surface level, and it was almost like a shtick of, I'm going to use this plot to try to pull readers in. Now, if you like this book, that's awesome. It has a ton of good reviews. I am probably in the outlier here, but it's just not something that I'll see myself going through, and it's not a book that's been important to me, so that's why I'm getting rid of it. Same goes for this collection of essays. My wife got me this for Christmas a couple years ago, 2022, obviously, which is what this year is from. Don't worry, I talked to my wife already about getting rid of it. She said it's fine. My wife is actually pushing me to get rid of books, so it's okay. But similar to the previous book, actually not really similar, I did enjoy most of the essays in this, but there's really nothing that stood out to me as this is something that um, is something I'm going to keep going back to, or anything that really changed my thought process, my worldview, anything like that. Not that every book has to do that, but so best American essays. And I'm not getting rid of these books, like just throwing them out. I am going to be donating them to my local bookstores. So either, I live in Buffalo, New York, so either Rust Belt Books, kind of more downtown, or Stewart and Spector Books in Kenmore. Those are kind of the two bookstores I really like, as well as Old Editions Antiquarian Bookstore is another one that's good. So if you're ever in Buffalo, those are kind of three of the ones I would recommend hitting up. Next one I'm getting rid of just because it's a duplicate. This is The Old Man in the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I'm a big Hemingway fan, and I did like this book, so I'm going to keep another copy, or this, I'm actually going to be keeping this copy of it. So originally I had my own copy of this book, and then my wife had this copy, and my wife is like, I'm getting rid of my copy. So this is the copy she was getting rid of, but then I looked, and it's from 1952 book club edition. So it's not like a first edition, because it's a book club edition, but it's from 1952, and it's got nice deckled edges. So this is actually a nicer copy than mine. So actually, I'll be keeping this copy and getting rid of my other copy. But Old Man in the Sea, it's a classic story about a man wrestling with a fish, but it's a lot more than that, obviously, because it's Hemingway. And it's also a lot less than that because of how reserved his prose is. But would highly recommend it. It's not one of my top Hemingways, but definitely worth reading. This is the only book that I was not a fan of when I read it. And this is The Book of Strange New Things by Michael Faber. Again, another book that got highly praised, and if you like it, that's awesome. It's definitely worth it if you're into these kinds of books, but I just really didn't. I personally didn't like the way the plot progressed. So it's about a English priest or pastor or something like that, essentially a missionary, who goes to an alien civilization on another planet to spread Christianity. And I just did not think that the characters, as someone who is a practicing Christian myself, and not that every book has to coincide with what I think or things like that, but I felt like the preachers or the pastors or whatever he was, actions and the things that he said didn't really reflect, I think, what a true English pastor of Christianity would have said or would have done. I think it was kind of, he adjusted things to fit his story rather than trying to be true to what probably would have happened and seeing how the plot developed from there. I feel like he construed some of the sorry, I'm struggling with words again. He construed some of the actions to fit the plot that he wanted to make it probably more interesting, rather than making it more realistic and making the pastor or priest a little bit more steadfast, which I would have liked to see him more steadfast and see the results of that. It's also got a beautiful cover, which is, I think, why I've kept it so long, but it's time to get rid of it. The next book is a book that I have not read. It's the only one here that I haven't read, and that is Purity by Jonathan Franzen. I've read two other Franzens, Corrections and Freedom, and I liked Corrections more than Freedom. Freedom was okay. So when this came out, I just picked it up. I think he has another new book coming out. I think he's doing a tetralogy or a trilogy or something like that. But I picked this one up, and it's been sitting on my shelves ever since it came out. I have no interest in Jonathan Franzen anymore. I think I've read I think The Corrections is probably going to be his best work. I mean, we'll see what happens with these new books that he's publishing, but I just have no interest in pursuing anything else that he's been writing. This next book I read, and I remember nothing about it other than that it's about baseball, and I think that's a good sign to get rid of a book, is if you don't remember what it's about and also how it made you feel. Probably means that it was probably a pretty mundane book that really didn't affect you personally. So this is The Art of Fielding by Chad Harbach. The last book that I am getting rid of, I know I made it seem like I'm really cleaning out my closet and getting rid of a lot of books, but I'm really only getting rid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. And this is The Innovators by Walter Isaacson. I did enjoy this book. I thought it was very interesting. It's kind of talking about hackers and a lot of technology and how it's developed, specifically computers and things like that. And I did enjoy it. This is the first Walter Isaacson I've read. I also had his Jobs book about Steve Jobs, but I just don't foresee myself. I actually got rid of that book because I don't see myself reading it. And like I said, I enjoyed this book while I was reading it, but it's nothing that I'll go back to. It's nothing that really, if this was a nonfiction book that would fit more of my interests, I definitely would keep it. So if it was about literary history, literary theory, criticism, things like that. But with this being about technology, it's not something that super interests me. And because of that, I'm just going to get rid of it because I don't see myself going back into it. So those are the books that I'm going to be getting rid of. I thought this would be a little bit of an interesting video as well as a chance to talk about some books, which is really the purpose of this channel. Thank you for watching, and hopefully my next video will be from my new library. So looking forward to that. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.